Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, or evening, or whenever it is that you are watching this. We are back and would like to welcome you to the show. We are excited to be here. Some of us are still traveling. Some of us are not.
Some of us are jealous of the others of us who are traveling. So.
My name is Brenda Neckwaddle, and I am flashing up our information here, and my co-host is Suzanne Lucas, also known as the Evil HR Lady. And this is how you guys can find us on social media. We are literally all over the place. And yeah.
We're your worst nightmare.
That's something like that. So I'm coming to you from Texas right now. And Suzanne is still in Switzerland.
Still in Switzerland. No. Someday I'm going to have to hop across the border, which is literally 2 miles away from me, just so that I can feel global and cool traveler like Brenda. Call for friend. Can I come to a show from your house just because I want to be in another place?
It's funny. So today we're going to be talking about, even though we didn't want to do another episode about COVID-19, we just can't get away from it. But this is a good, juicy one. So
I think this is a good, juicy one.
Yeah, this is a really good one. So we are talking about, we want to share with you guys some of the cases or the categories of cases and where it's happening of claims, COVID-19 claims that are taking place. And this is specific to employment law, and it's specific to cases that are being litigated in the workforce. And we're gonna just gobble this information up. So first off, almost every state in the union right now has a case being litigated, at least one. And this, believe it or not, the states that are not being litigated are North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Vermont. And the state with the highest number of cases, and I'm not even going to ask you this. Normally, if I didn't send you the link, Suzanne, I would be like, guess which one it is.
And I would guess the correct answer.
You probably would, which is California. California. Second highest, it appears it is New York. No.
Yeah, New York. No, New Jersey.
It's New Jersey with 66 cases, New York with 58,
and then
Florida with 56, and then Texas at 36.
Yeah, and just keep in mind when we're saying cases, we're talking about legal cases, not cases of COVID.
Right, exactly.
We don't want to have people think, oh, we only have 36 cases in Texas? Yeah, we have 36.
No. Yeah, these are claims that have been filed. So, interesting enough, it's interesting, but it's not interesting. Where we are finding the breakdown by industry, companies or industries with the highest number of claims are healthcare, which shouldn't be a surprise. They have about 115. Next is actually higher education at 71, retail coming in at 59, manufacturing is at 43, professional services at 41, hospitality at 37, public sector only 25, which I thought was interesting. And then airlines and transportation, only 19, construction, 22, financial services are 8, insurance is ringing the bell at a whole whopping 2, sports and entertainment at 3, and then trucking and logistics at 12. So it's reasonable to understand that the industries that have client-facing interactions will naturally have the possibility of having more different types of cases that are going on. But we're going to talk about the specific allegations here in just a second. So any thought and insight on what we just called out there, Suzanne?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that, the industries that are up there are the things like healthcare, where most healthcare jobs cannot be done from home. And so you're going to be running into a lot more problems with your employees. And retail, of course, retail have been the unsung heroes through all of this.
Right.
We praise healthcare, which we should, but low-paid retail people have been working the entire time, and it can definitely open up some of those things. When you have other things where people can work from home. I find the higher education really interesting, though, because everybody went online in March, pretty much. And right now, a lot of universities are doing kind of a mishmash. Some classes in person, some online, some students on campus, some not. I think it would be interesting to learn more about their specific cases and what's driving the high number of cases in higher education. What I don't see on there is, do we use the term lower education? I don't think we ever use the term lower education, but primary and secondary schools, that's not on there as the list. So what's the difference between, unless that's under public sector jobs? I don't know.
Well, I think it would be under public sector, but then also bear in mind too that those physicalities have been shut down since I know they have in Virginia. They've been shut down since like March.
Yeah, but so is the higher education. So
right, but the difference is that schools are unionized here in the U.S.
That's true, and the universities don't tend to be
exactly much. So I think that would be because everything would be limited by a collective bargaining agreement.
So in this case, you may be able to argue that the collective bargaining agreement is actually protecting the management side here.
Sure, but we don't. I mean, that's just
we don't know.
We don't have details on that.
No.
Yeah. So, but what's interesting is that when, as we're looking at the data, what I found to be quite interesting. So let's say, for example, the high. So those are the. Let's take a step back. Those are the industries. Now, there's also specific allegations that are taking place too. And they cover a wide range of things. It's not just all COVID related, but it's COVID connected. And one I thought is very interesting is that the highest number out of all of this data that we're looking at, the highest number is actually retaliation, which I find really interesting.
And well, that's exactly what we would expect, because that's always the highest number. When you're talking about EEOC claims and things like that, it's always the retaliation that gets them in the end. You try to keep somebody quiet or something about their claim, and they end up suing you for retaliation. They may not win on their claim of discrimination or whatever, but if you punish them for reporting it, that retaliation can come up. And I can see how that can happen really easily with COVID, really easily. Yeah. There have been some cases, not legal cases yet, but where companies have forbidden people from speaking out about COVID cases among other employees and so on and so forth, and punishing employees for so doing, which is patently illegal. You can't silence people talking about their working conditions. And so I can see how that really, really happens. And there's a whole bunch of different categories of retaliation. Mm-hmm. So we've got just general retaliation, and then you've got retaliation for contacting ethics and compliance. Mm-hmm. I can totally see the panic in a manager's or owner's eyes, when someone calls OSHA to complain. Retaliation for filing an unemployment claim, retaliation for refusal to work, Retaliation for reporting unsafe working conditions. That's a real high one at 64. And retaliation for requesting or taking leave, and retaliation for requesting, utilizing FMLA and FFCRA or state leave. So
yeah, I can see retaliation at, somebody was identified for a furlough or a layoff, and they made the assumption that they're on the chopping block for whatever reason. I mean, they could have been written up. They could have been, they could have somebody that's trying to exercise constructive discharge. That's a number of things that retaliation could certainly fall into play on.
Yeah. And so I said, this is where companies get themselves caught, because, it's not the crime, it's the cover up that gets you into trouble. If somebody complains about something, it's easy to avoid a retaliation claim just by taking them seriously,
right,
and not punishing them for bringing it to your attention. I mean, when you have this retaliation for reporting unsafe work conditions, don't you want to know if something is unsafe so you can fix it? And yes, I understand that it can be expensive. And I also understand that there are employees that are going to say this is unsafe when it's not unsafe, or it's at a proper level of safety, or, in which case you don't punish the employee. You explain, here are the CDC guidelines. Here are the OSHA guidelines. We are following those. And then that's the end of it. There's no punishment for the employee. You thank the employee for bringing it to your attention, so that if there is an actual problem, you can fix it. You don't punish the employee, because that lands you with a retaliation claim. And it doesn't even matter if the employee was right. If you punish them saying, hey, I think this is a problem, it doesn't have to be a problem for it to become a retaliation claim. So listen to your employees when they come to you, and take the time to explain why you are in compliance, or what you need to do to fix it, to make sure that it is safe. Because besides just looking out for your bottom line, you don't want your employees to get sick. You don't want your customers to get sick. So let's try to be logical and nice all at the same time.
All right. So you want to know what the next one is? Next highest one without looking? No cheating.
Oh, I was going to cheat. Okay.
No, not allowed to cheat.
I don't know. What's the next one?
Breach of contract.
That's an interesting one.
Now, no cheating still.
I'm not cheating.
Which industry do you think it's in?
I would guess healthcare.
Nope.
Really?
Higher education.
Oh.
Yeah. Higher education, 42 cases.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And I think, some of that comes from, tenured instructors over at schools who suddenly had to lose their positions because of COVID, and they may not have had the right information in their employment contract, or, they were, looking at tenure and didn't get it. I mean, I think there's a number of interesting reasons as to why that's taken place.
Well, I will say higher education is one of the few fields in which there are contracts.
Right.
Healthcare has contracts for doctors a lot of the times, but not for other healthcare providers. So it does make sense that the higher education, because there are contracts involved there.
Right.
But it also brings up the question, this is, and I hate to say it, unprecedented. And are your contracts sufficient to handle weird things? And I'm guessing that a lot of these were not.
Probably not.
We didn't predict it. There's in a lot of contracts, there's an act of God clause, that this contract becomes null and void if there's a volcano that goes off and destroys all of us. So then the question is was there this act of God clause in these things, and does a pandemic count as an act of God? And I am not a lawyer. Brenda's not a lawyer, and we haven't seen any of these contracts, but it's questioned. And when you're making contracts in the future, I think you're going to have to think that this is not going to be our last pandemic. Fingers crossed this one is all over with, in 2 more weeks, but
Yeah.
I wish.
So if we look at the data here, and we're looking at, I know I'm going to take a step back into the retaliation. They actually break it down into different forms of retaliation. So general retaliation, 76 claims. I can't even say it. Retaliation for contacting ethics and compliance is only at 14. For filing an unemployment claim is 1. Refusal to work, retaliation for refusal to work is 17. This is one of the biggest ones right here. Retaliation for reporting unsafe work conditions, 64 cases. Retaliation for requesting or taking leave is at 23. And the second highest is retaliation for requesting or utilizing FMLA, FFCRA, or state leave is at 47 claims.
Yeah, it's that last one. I mean, we already talked about how you want people to bring safety conditions to your attention. But those last ones with the violating the FFCRA and other claims, the EEOC has been swift on these.
EEOC is usually swift, which is great, but I would agree they're really fast right now.
They're really fast right now. And I'm glad of that, other than the fact that the law can be a little bit confusing and they keep changing guidelines and all of that. But this isn't something you can get away with.
Right.
Because the EEOC has been really on top of their game here. Just fast. And, normally when I tell people to contact the EEOC about their, their discrimination case or whatever, I always tell them it's going to be a while. And this is not a while on these cases.
No, not at all.
They are just in there. And a lot of it is not even nuanced. It's like, does this person have childcare available? Yes, no. If the answer is no, and you didn't grant them the leave and you have fewer than 500 employees, summary judgment, you're done.
Yeah.
So your slick-tongued lawyer isn't going to get you out of it here.
No, and when the FFCRA first came out, the Department of Labor was extremely clear as to, I very rarely have I ever seen anything written in laws. So like American with Disabilities Act, in the preamble to the law, there's very specific guidance that says if your employer or if you feel that your rights under ADA are being violated, here's who you call, right? I've never seen that in a preamble of a law before. And then with FFCRA, when the Department of Labor was sharing the information and their decisions and their FAQs and all of their written guidance, they were very specific as to how long employers had a grace period to where they could, make mistakes, but they were also extremely clear as to when disciplinary and monitoring the situation was going to kick in. So basically, employers had a 2-week window to goof something up and then fix it. And I very rarely do I ever see anything like that anywhere else. So they're serious about this.
Usually legislation takes a longer time to be proposed and made into law, and then they generally have it start the next year, so you have enough time to think about it. This one was super fast. All of it was a whirlwind, and so that totally makes sense. But as she said, they've been super clear. It's been super clear, and there's no reason for your business to get sued for this. If you do, it's because you screwed up.
Yeah, big time.
And I totally admit, for a lot of businesses, this is a really tough law. If you have a lot of employees with children and the schools are still shut down in your area,
yep,
It's not a pleasant law. I'm not saying that it is. I'm not even going to argue that it was the proper law, but what it is the law. And so the people to complain to are your congressmen and senators, and not take it out on your employees. But it can be devastating to a business, absolutely. But we pick.
Well, litigation is even more deadly to a business because it's an absolute suck of finances and time and focus.
It is, and my friend John Hyman, who's an employment lawyer, he said years ago that the average employment case, when it goes to court, starts at $50,000, and that's if you win. You don't get it money back from your employee if you win, and can go up, of course, to whatever. And so you don't want to get in these cases. It's far better, as we've said a million times, contact your employment lawyer when you have a question than to try to do it on your own and contacting your employment lawyer when you get your notification that you're being sued. That's not the time to contact your employment lawyer. I mean, you must at that point, but there's a lot of employment lawyers out there that'll even let you have like a subscription where you pay a certain fee every month and then you can ask them unlimited questions. I mean, this is not something that is super expensive, that so many businesses just figure that they're going to be okay.
All right.
They're not.
Nope. Okay. So next one we should look at: disability discrimination under the category of failure to accommodate, including denial of remote work requests, 47 claims.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a nasty one. And I can tell you that the industry that was impacted the most, oddly enough, was healthcare and retail. Healthcare had 17 claims, retail had 9 claims, and New Jersey and California are the top 2 states. Matter of fact, New Jersey at 14 claims.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you 10-1, these are small businesses.
This is probably true. And the denial of remote work is something that has fascinated me throughout this whole thing, because the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't talk about specific remedies. It talks about making reasonable accommodations. And there's been lots of battles in the courts over the years over whether remote work is a reasonable accommodation.
Right.
And then in March, when everything shut down, suddenly all these jobs that everybody was arguing could not be done from home, well, it turns out they could be done from home. And then when businesses started opening up again, it became very difficult for a business to say, hey, you were doing that job fine for 3 months at home, but now that we're open again, you can't work from home, even though you have a disability, you're at high risk for COVID or whatever, and it's landing people in court. And the EEOC did come out and say recently that this does not make working from home automatically a reasonable accommodation, but the bar was really raised when everybody went home that could possibly go home, because now it's going to be a lot harder to prove that it's not reasonable, especially if someone has done it. And again, with disability discrimination, it's a matter of talking to your employee and working something out.
Yep. Now, the next one, I kind of skipped some numbers, I'm sorry, but this is actually one of the higher ones. Failure to pay for all wages or benefits owed for reasons related to COVID. So this is FFCRA specific. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these claims are, I think these are more than likely, and again, we don't know, we're only inferring here. These are likely going to be companies fewer than 500 and probably the under the 50 mark as far as employees, number of employees, for companies that are taking the exception to not pay employees under FFCRA, which there's provision does exist, but it's the exclusion provision because it could actually damage the business. In other words, that their cash flow is so low that they couldn't pay anybody out and couldn't wait to actually file a dollar for dollar tax claim through the 941s to get relief for actually compensating employees for absences related to COVID or leaves. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, I would guess. Did we see on that list anything about the PPP loans? I'm wondering if that would also fall into that. I've seen a lot of people complaining about their employers doing sketchy things with the PPP money. Doubling their salaries and then saying, okay, but then you have to work the next month for free and all of that. But I don't see. Yeah, it's been sketchy, but I haven't seen a case on that. I wonder if that falls under that, or if that's just not something that's landed in the courts as of yet.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming.
I'm sure it's coming too. This would not be a surprise to me. And companies are going to find themselves in being sad that they were dumb.
All right, let's do another one. Let's see. We did that one. The next higher claim, I would say, we kind of looked at that. All right, here it is. Failure to provide PPE, adequate hand washing areas, sanitizer, and to enforce social distancing protocols. Now, look, in all fairness, there's a lot of companies out there, and I know several of them, and I won't say who they are, but I do know quite a few that don't buy into what's going on. That's fine. But here's where it's really interesting. The industry that is impacted the most, out of 44 claims filed, 19 of them is the highest number, is healthcare.
That just is a little bit nerve-wracking, isn't it?
The second highest is retail, and they only have 8. So 19. And I could see maybe in the first 1/3 of the year when all of this was, we were in our boom and everybody was running out buying toilet paper and everybody literally ate all of the hand sanitizer. I can understand how it would be difficult to get your hands on that stuff. But I could see that being problematic for healthcare because that does take the priority. But I find that to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see when these cases were filed because, like you said at the beginning, I know there were huge problems with healthcare workers not having enough PPE available, and it wasn't available.
Yeah.
But now that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, in every store I go into, there are huge stacks of masks for sale. The medical ones or the cute ones. It's not an issue anymore. There's hand sanitizer everywhere where I am. It's really easy to find now, whereas it wasn't before. So I would be interested to see if those cases are from March when they were filed or if they were filed in August. Because if they were filed in August, then I lose my sympathy for the healthcare management. If they were filed in March, hey, I have some sympathy for management. Everybody was trying the best that they could. It was a disaster.
Yeah, it absolutely was.
Now it's not. But then on the retail side as well, my retail experience in COVID is limited to my town. So I don't know what the rest of the world is doing. But, here they immediately put up the plexiglass shields for every cashier, and hand sanitizer when you come in, limiting the number of people in the buildings, and the 2 meter, 6 foot marks on the ground when people are standing in line. I mean, they really, really took it seriously in retail here. I don't know if that's true. You've been traveling the country, Brenda. What do you think?
Well,
are they taking it seriously?
yeah, I mean, I'm seeing, I've been to how many states have I been to now? About 10, 12. And everybody's taking it, relatively seriously. And what I find to be interesting is that, I don't see everywhere I'm going, I'm not seeing like the trauma and the drama that we see in the media. I really don't. And I'm traveling through multiple states, multiple cities, multiple towns, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, I've traveled from Virginia through Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, California, Arizona, New Mexico, now Texas. You chart my path here. I literally have gone across the country.
She traveled the country to bring us the news.
Yeah, that's right. And I've been driving, so I see it everywhere, and it's just it's not nearly as tense as the media is making it out to be. And I still have Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina to traverse through. So it's just like I said, it's not nearly as crazy as it was. But so as far as what's going on in states, though, now no cheating.
I'm not cheating.
You. Let's take a look at California. Out of all the industries, which industry do you think has the highest number of COVID litigation claims right now?
Just in California?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's got to be healthcare.
Nope.
Man. What?
That's okay. It's higher education. The second highest, so higher education has 13. The second highest is healthcare. Professional services is the third highest at 11. I mean, it's hitting most of the major industries. Retail is at 8, manufacturing is at 7, hospitality is at 9, and then trucking and logistics at 6. So it's interesting. Now I want to take a hop across the country. Let's take a look over at New Jersey here real quick.
Yeah, New Jersey is our other problem child.
Yeah, one of many. Let's see. New Jersey's claims. The highest number is healthcare at 14. The second highest is retail at 11. The third highest is manufacturing at 6. And I wonder if New York is similar. Let's take a look here real quick. But since their borders touch,
right,
I wouldn't be surprised. And because of the reciprocity that happens. So healthcare, higher education, professional services, and retail in that order. So not too terribly different, but higher education has crept up in New York over what is going on in New Jersey. Florida, I'll bet you 10 to 1 it's healthcare.
Would not surprise me.
No, it would not. Let's take a look. Yep. Healthcare is the highest with 10 claims, hospitality at 7, retail at 5, professional services at 4. So healthcare, I can also, looking at this, really take into account, nursing homes. In Florida, absolutely.
Yeah. Florida, yeah, nursing homes are got to be a scary place at the moment. And a lot of people in Florida don't really have an option. Their family doesn't live nearby that they can come take you home.
Yeah. Or they wouldn't even be allowed in.
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult situation.
But Nonetheless, I mean, that gives everybody, an idea of what is going on, because we knew this was coming. Um, I mean, if you're surprised that there's a type of litigation that's taking place, you need to reset your priorities. That's for sure. So I thought so we thought that was really interesting information, which leads us into what kind of questions people are asking out in the world. And I understand you have a question for me, and I know I have a question for you.
I do have a question for you, and it's not terribly COVID linked, but it is a little bit.
All right.
So this question, we focus here on the Real HR Show about from a manager HR viewpoint, and this is an employee question, but we sit on the other side of the table from these things. And this is a question that I get over and over and over again. This woman, I'm going to paraphrase because she wrote me this email, so I'm just paraphrasing it because it's kind of long. She works in a school, and she just gave birth to her third child. But she's in a very large school district, so FFCRA is not available to her. Okay. And older kids are 6 and 8, and she has a baby. So she has a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, a newborn, and the 6-year-old and 8-year-old are doing remote learning. And so in order for her to go back to work, she has to cover the cost of childcare for 3 children, which she cannot do. So she wants to resign before her FMLA leaves. And her question is, I'm not sure how I should write my resignation, and I don't have 2 weeks notice to give because I'm currently on paid family leave. What would your advice be to
me? Well, I mean, that's a little complicated question, because if
you know me, my complicated questions, Brenda.
Well, and typically, typically our audience really is to the employer. So, right. But this is still a really good question, because this is likely an individual who is covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Being a teacher, that more than likely she's working in a unionized environment. So, to be honest with you, how to write your resignation letter, keep it generic.
And that's generally the advice for any resignation letter. There's never a time to say, you suck, I don't want to work there anymore. It's just not worth it. But then when you flip it on the other side, what's your reaction when you get a resignation letter from someone that says, I'm not coming back from leave. You expected me back. What am I? I'm not going to come back. On the other side, on the HR side of things,
I think it's, I mean, anybody who leaves, they're leaving for a reason. And, if she had voiced her concerns that she couldn't cover the cost of, childcare for 3 children, and suddenly, resigns, was there enough? I would challenge, was there enough conversation about what the school could do, or what her options were with her employer or with her union representative? I would want to know that. But to be honest with you, being in retail for as long as I have been, and dealing with the multiple leaves around pregnancy, it's also not uncommon that women make the decision to just stay home and be full-time moms for a while. And in an environment like this, I wouldn't question that.
No, I wouldn't question it either. And I certainly would say thank you so much. And I would, mark her file as eligible for rehire.
Yeah.
But I think you bring up a really good point there, is that has she told them what her concerns are? Because I guarantee she's not the only teacher in this school district that is in this problem. Because her school district is large. It's New York City. There's definitely more than 500 employees there. So they're not eligible for FFCRA. And if they're doing remote school, teachers tend to have kids. This is a huge problem. And the school district may have some things set to help, and maybe they haven't communicated with it. And that's something from an HR standpoint, is that it's always cheaper to retain than it is to recruit and train. So you may want to let people know who are in this situation, hey, look, here's what we can do for you. Yeah. And they may have been making things known to people that are actively working, but because she's on FMLA, they haven't been bothering her. And I assume she's a good employee and they're going to lose her. And recruiting and training right now is not an easy thing. So I think when we're accepting letters of resignation and so on and so forth, I mean, we never say, no, you can't resign. I mean, you can't legally do that anyway. You must come into work tomorrow. But there are things we can do to save people. And I mean, I don't know what options are available in the New York City School District. Yeah. No idea.
I don't either.
But I suspect there are thousands of teachers who are in this woman's situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I need something to figure out. Okay. Are you ready for this question?
I am.
You're going to fall off your chair laughing when you hear this. Then you're going to roll your eyes. And then you're going to say, oh my God.
Perfect.
Are you ready?
Yep.
This is, oh gosh. So is it reasonable? Now it's not for me. Understand, this is a ridiculous question. I know the answer to this, but is it reasonable to ask a prospective employee to pick up the tab for a lunch interview?
The candidate? You want to ask the candidate? Is the video quality good enough that I can see my eyes rolling
in the back of your head?
You know, can I tell you a story from many years ago?
Go ahead.
So many years ago, 20 years ago, actually probably precisely 20 years ago, because it's 2020 and this happened in 2000, which I know because it was the year I got married. So my husband went for a job interview. We were in upstate New York and the job interview was on Long Island, which if you know New York geography is about a 7-hour drive. So it either involves flying and then renting a car or driving and staying in a hotel. So he drove, he stayed in a hotel, interviewed for the job. They reimbursed him for his travel expenses. He gets home. They made him a job offer. He turned it down. He had 3 job offers at this time, and that was not the one he picked. And so they stopped payment on the check for the travel reimbursement. And it was for like $350. And I was livid. And he was going to let it go. And normally I would say, don't have your wife get involved in your recruiting. But I was angry and dang it, I wanted my $350. And my husband wouldn't do anything about it because he's just like, just let it go. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to let it go. So I called. This is something wives should not do, but I called and I'm like, why did this check get canceled? And they told me, oh, because he didn't accept the job. And I said, well, that's not a reason to cancel it. And this guy said to me, you know, listen, honey, I know you're just a housewife. And this is when Brenda's eyes bug out of her head. And I said, no, actually, I'm in human resources, and this is a cost of recruiting. And he said, okay. And they gave us a new check. The end.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's fine to have someone travel at their own expense for an interview or whatever if you tell them in advance. But don't take them out for lunch and then give them the bill. Oh my gosh, you should pay for theirs and yours, but definitely, I mean, no, that's a bad one.
Yeah, I would agree. It gets interesting.
Well, you know, a lot of managers don't hire all that often.
No.
And they don't know how to do it. And a lot of HR doesn't train them. And a lot of businesses are small businesses without HR or a professional recruiter involved to coach on those things. You know, they put an ad up on their webpage or they recruit through word of mouth, which is a fine way to recruit. but they don't know what they're doing. So no, we pay for the candidates' lunch, and if you can't afford it, maybe you shouldn't be hiring someone new because you're going to have to pay them every week.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Yeah, so I knew that was going to be a good one for you.
That
All
was a
right.
good
So tell you what, why don't we share about our groups that we're in?
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you about Brenda's group. She can't stop me. So Brenda runs a group called Next Gen Women in HR, and you can join it. You don't have to be a woman, even though it says women. And it's an interactive group where you can talk about HR things, and it's a private group, so it can be a little bit more detailed because other people can't read it, which is really good. And Brenda offers free webinars and those types of things to really help people in the start of their HR career, and then people that are later in their HR career, that kind of mentor the newbies. So that's Brenda's group.
Well, and then Suzanne has the Evil HR Lady Facebook group, and they've been around for quite a while. It's a very engaged group as well, and where they, really help each other, ask questions, share resources. There's a lot of really good information that comes out on that, and like I said, it's a strong group. They've been around since 2016. You started that?
Don't ask me hard questions.
I think it was 2016 because it's been around for like 4 or 5 years, which means that there's a lot of really great historical content in there. And that my group, we've only been around since January of this year. So yeah, both really, really great groups that you guys are welcome to go ahead and jump in on and see where you can find value. And again, my name is Brenda Neckbottle, and here's where you can find me at bestpractices.org. Suzanne Lucas, you can find her at theevilhrlady.org. And once again, here are our social handles, or you can find us all over the place.
We are everywhere.
That's right. And I got one more to do up here. And we thank you guys for jumping back in again. We will be back next week.
And the real question is, where will Brenda?
What's that?
Where will Brenda be next week?
Brenda will. That's a good question. No idea.
I will be in the exact same spot. I might be wearing different glasses, but that's all we're gonna have.
And and we want to say thank you so much for joining us.
All right, we'll see you next week.
See ya, guys.